Well, we finally get to see at least some of the things Shanks is more capable of in this chapter. Yeah. Uh, that's something that'll be interesting later on down the line. Uh, so obviously, I'm going to be talking about chapter 1079 for One Piece. Okay, so we'll go off the cover page first because it's just cute. The Germa stuff is finished for now. They'll probably show back up later at some point in time with their Neo-Mads idea. But in this case, it's back to just fan requests, and it's just like, draw Luffy watering a lion because he thinks it's a sunflower or something like that. A dandelion probably would have been slightly funnier, but that always shifts around. So, chapter starts out with a flashback from probably, just as a couple of hours earlier. So, this is in regards to more with York being the traitor. York is talking to the different Seraphim, and I'm assuming this is probably happening either just before, well, because S. Bear is there, so it has to be taking place after the CP Zero agents have shown up. So it's probably when all of the different Seraphim, the four of them, are waiting outside of the lab, while the others are inside the lab talking and discussing things. And we know that at one point during this time frame, in the original chapters, York kind of got up and seemed like she walked off and did something, and this is what she walked off and did. This is definitely going along with my lines of the overworked, underappreciated, overlooked employee syndrome going on now. Seems to be part of what's going on, but it's also comparative to, York is just exceedingly greedy in regards to stuff that goes with being the greed or the desire in regards to that aspect of Vegapunk's personality. And that seems to definitely be what's going on here with York. So I was kind of on the nose with that a little bit. In this case, she's found out, of course, that the CPI Zero agents have been sent to assassinate her and eliminate her and all the rest of the Vegapunks. So this is definitely happening during that time frame since S. Bear is there. And going through this, we see her talking to them and explaining out her plan of like, okay, so here's what's going to happen, blah, 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 blah. You're going to do this, you're going to do that, you're going to do that. And she specifically tells S. Snake, well, okay, so you're going to have to petrify me in front of people. And this is what happens when they're off, all in their little separate groups and stuff like that. And it's with, when she's off with Lilith and Usopp and Frankie, and they see, York get turned to stone. And then, the other ones get knocked off the bridge, and then S. Snake then depetrified York while nobody else was looking, and then sent her on her way. Seems to be the concept of what's going on. And then, all the Seraphim go rogue. And since we know about the Seraphim order hierarchy, this basically means that the only two that would be able to stop them going on this rampage should be the Stella, which is why she had the Stella locked up, and should be the Gorosei. So, Jay Garcia Saturn, whenever he shows up to the island, should technically be able to put a stop to this. Once he gives the Seraphim an order, if that is truly how their hierarchy setup is designed. So that, to York's benefit, it's actually a fairly decent plan. Make yourself just look like one of the victims. And then once everybody thinks you've been turned to stone, you can just go off and do what you need. And, there could still be something where there's, Caribou could be taking out the different equipment or stuff like that. Maybe Caribou found her and she's like, oh, you're going to help me now type of thing, but we're not sure. She also seems to give S. Snake something else to do. She did tell the Seraphim to spare her, the Stella, and the CP agents that are currently being held prisoner. So probably still definitely wipe out CPI Zero. So that would be, Lucci and Kaku and Stussy and stuff like that. Although Stussy has now joined their side, so there's a difference there. But still one of the, they still want her to be eliminated, or at least at the very least, York still wants Stussy to be eliminated. I was kind of hoping that Stussy wasn't going to end up being a traitor. So I was at least somewhat happy about that. I'm like, I do think she is a little overpowered to just hand to the Straw Hats as an ally, but her allegiance seems to be more to Vegapunk. So I would assume, in regards to Stussy, even though she doesn't show up in this chapter at all, I would assume that in regards to Stussy, that if the Straw Hats ended up doing something that would hurt Vegapunk, particularly the Stella body, Stussy would do something to defend him. So there's a difference there, as opposed to like, oh, her allegiance is to the Straw Hats. No, her allegiance is to Vegapunk. And at the moment, that happens to be aligned with working with the Straw Hats. Should the Straw Hats do something that would endanger Vegapunk or that would harm Vegapunk, then she would step in and defend him, is probably what's going on with Stussy. Again, Lucci and Kaku are still having to be paired up with Luffy and Zoro at the moment in regards to having to deal with Luffy and Kaku are probably, or Luffy and Lucci are still dealing with S-Bear probably, but after the little flashback, we see that S-Snake is headed off to somewhere. We do not know where this is. It's not stated in the chapter. I would assume it's not to the basement, since that's where, York is with the Stella body at the moment, or where we would assume they still are. It could be heading off to go and get something else that York wants to make sure that they take with them. Maybe there's a devil fruit. Maybe it's to go and defend Punk Records, because she wants the Stella body spared. And as I stated in the last chapter review that I did, in regards to York and the rest of the satellites, if the other satellites are eliminated, they're not, yes, they're connected to Punk Records and are able to like download their, new knowledge into Punk Records at the end of the day or whenever they all upload their knowledge. Then there's that. But there's also this whole thing of, the Stella is actually the one that is the embodiment of where the devil fruit is, of where that devil fruit power is coming from. And then he's just, integrated that into the others. So should the other satellites all get destroyed or taken offline in some capacity, York should still technically be able to access that information if the rest of, as long as the Stella body is still alive. And so that's where they would want them to spare Vegapunk, spare the Stella body. I do have another video that I'm kind of working on that is a comparison between the Vegapunks and how Punk Records works compared to kind of the way I'm thinking it works in the Stellas and the satellite bodies compared to how All for One works, or excuse me, One for All works in My Hero Academia. So I'm just kind of working on a comparison there. But moving on, we do see that Sentomaro is still working on getting, all the different other scientists and residents of Egghead Island onto the ships. He's got the Pacifista Mark IIIs or whatever that are there helping keep an eye on them while they're getting everybody evacuated. Probably just get on the freaking ship. So in regards to this, I don't know where I fall. I mean, I don't think Sentomaro is going to betray Vegapunk. If he was, he would have done that already in regards to not helping Straw Hat and the others, not helping Luffy and the others and stuff like that get to the, lift to get them up to the Labosphere and everything. So there's a difference there. I don't think Sentomaro or Stussy are going to betray Vegapunk. But in regards to the ships that are going to be leaving with all these other residents of Egghead Island, I mean, we saw what happened with Ohara way back when, 22 years ago, and we saw that even the ships filled with supposedly civilians were not safe, and that was more because of Akainu and to him being like, okay, well, we're just going to blow up the ship anyway or whatever, because even if there's the possibility of one archaeologist that still knows how to read the poneglyphs ending up on that ship, in disguise, it's for the greater good and absolute justice type of a thing. Barring Jay Garcia Saturn telling Kizaru to destroy that ship, destroy one of the ships that's just leaving with all the other archaeologists and scientists and stuff like that from Egghead, because I don't think Vegapunk would have had them involved. He may have asked a question or two about what they know, but probably not having them be involved in the actual research of the poneglyphs. That doesn't seem like something that Vegapunk would do, because it would be endangering someone else. But then again, him also logic and trying to determine about, science and revolution, not revolution, science and, gaining more knowledge and stuff like that. He may have asked, but I would hope Shaka may have been able to be like, okay, well, let's not ask the other scientists to help with the Void Century stuff. That doesn't seem like a good idea. They could tell the world government. or whatever the case may be. So I don't think that's going to be an issue, but I'm also not going to be surprised at all in the slightest if they show up and Jay Garcia Saturn sees one of the boats leaving, and like maybe they have someone on the boat that says, "We are literally just the scientists that work here. We know nothing about what's going on. Please let us go." I can see him either being like, "Okay, we'll blow up the ship," and just Kizaru does it, and then all those people drown or whatever. More drowning people in this chapter, or upcoming chapters, or he just, lets them go after they verify that none of the satellites are on the ship. The Vegapunk or none of the satellites are on the ship, and lets them go. That is also a possibility. Because, they lost a lot of knowledge when they destroyed O'Hara, but that was kind of to the world government's benefit, so we'll see how they do this, how they decide to play this, and how, depending on how much they're willing to pay Morgans to not print the whole truth as to what happened, or not to print some of the truth as to what happened whenever the paper comes out with, like, the incident about Egghead Island. So we see that. Also, in the distance, we see a ship approaching that has the Blackbeard Pirates flag. We see no one that's on the ship, so the last we know about Blackbeard and some of his original crew members, they were off dealing with Law and his crew, so that could still be going on. They've been on the crew has been on Egghead for a couple of hours, so we don't know exactly, if that battle would still be going on. Also, they kind of went in a different direction than where Law was going. So, also we don't know who's on the ship. It could be Katarina Daemon. She could disguise herself as someone and work her way into Egghead Island as someone. Or however the other cases may be. If Shiryu is on the ship, he could just become invisible and work his way into the island. Again, that wouldn't be surprising. If it's none of the original crew members, and it's probably, some of them, or it could be Aokiji, having, Kuzan show up and maybe having him have a small battle with Kizaru would be interesting, since we haven't really seen the two of them have to go head to head before, or have any instance where they've done that. But, he could show up and then, he has to have an altercation with either the Straw Hats trying to stop them from escaping the island, or has to do something else. We'll see how that goes. But we don't really have any information about who's on the ship. Now we move into the main section of the chapter, where we get a lot more action as opposed to schemes and people running around. Yeah. So anyone that read the spoilers for this has read the actual chapter itself, knows what's coming, but we'll get to that. So, we are back to Elbath, and Warland of Elbath, where Kid is, going up against, Shanks's Red Force, his fleet. And, we see Kid and Killer, and they're talking. We're just, let's just get rid of these stuff, and, let's just get rid of these, weaklings and stuff like that are under Shanks. And then we have all these other pirates that were introduced to. That are different members of Shanks's fleet, that are, we're not going to let you attack our beloved chief or whatever. We're not going to let you hurt him. Which, we don't really see a whole lot of interaction between Kid and the rest of his crew. We see interaction between Kid and Killer, and some between Heat and Wire. And, we recently got a list more of, with sketches of like all the other different members of the Kid Pirates and what they, look like, and their names and stuff like that. So that was nice. And I know that the anime has done a little bit where currently, like, I know one of the episodes that just came out was the battle between Killer and Hawkins, where, Killer chops off Hawkins' left arm, and such. So, and we saw some of the other member of the Kid Pirates in the background there, cheering, Killer on and stuff like that. So we saw some of that. And in this chapter, we get some glimpses of a few other ones as the chapter goes on. But we also are introduced to additional members of the Red Force, or the Red Fleet, whatever you want to call them. We get a little guy that is a frog guy, captain of the Puddle Pirates, padded paddle-toed Goritini. What it said. He seems to use ribbit a lot when he talks, so he's like a male version of Sue from My Hero Academia, I guess, or I guess like her father, since he's also a frog, has a frog quirk. And then we have this old guy who has like his dentures that keep jumping out of his mouth. That is the head of the social club pirates, Grave Tooth Fugger. I don't know what to say about that. And then we have, we're not going to let you get to, we're not going to let you get our captain. And then we have the princess of the bourgeoisie pirates, Panicky Pururu. I am going to make a call back. There's Cavendish in the Grand Fleet, and he is from the Bourgeois Kingdom. And he had to leave his kingdom because he was so handsome, and all the girls in the kingdom wanted to marry him, and they refused to marry anybody else if they couldn't marry Cavendish, so they made him leave. Also, there was the whole Hakuba situation where when he falls asleep, he kind of turns into a psychotic serial killer. So he had to leave. He was forced out of his kingdom, and then, we know that the different, several of the different, a lot of the different groups of women on the island started to, just basically made fan clubs that float around and like try to find him and get him to marry one of them. There's the possibility that this Princess Pururu has a connection to that, but then again, also like bourgeoisie is also just like this French term that is like the very high-ranking members of society and stuff like that. The bourgeoisie of Paris, back, like before the revolution and stuff like that. Very exceedingly wealthy members of the, elites of Paris and stuff like that. So it's probably a reference to that, but there could be a connection to the kingdom that Cavendish is from. We get no ages on these ones. The old guy is old. The frog guy might be a little bit, middle-aged. The princess lady, I don't know. We'll see what ends up happening. I kind of like her design, though. She looks kind of cute. She gives off, like, child vibes, but I'm hoping she's not a child. So we see them, and they, of course, don't want to let Kid anywhere near Shanks, because Shanks is their captain. Their fleet, the head of their fleet and everything. They're part of Yonko's forces, so they're similar to the way that the Beast Pirates are for Kaido, and the way that, the different, crews were in regards to being Big Mom and being subordinate crews and stuff like that, the way that Beiji was. Although I don't think Shanks requires marriage for any of this, to be, a connection to his crew. But, we see Kid, and he is just not impressed with any of these different ships that are showing up and trying to attack him, and prevent him from getting to Shanks. We see a bunch of other ships with different flags on them. I can't really tell what any of them are very easily. Probably in the anime, when this gets done in the anime, we'll get like more close-ups of some of the ships and stuff like that, and more close-ups of some of the other captains and stuff like that, because they'll drag this out a little bit in the anime, which some of that stuff I'm fine with. They'll probably throw out some extra shots of some of the other crew members from Kid's crew during this time frame as well. Whenever they get to this in the episodes in the anime, and such. But Kid's just like, yeah, well, we'll take them out anyway and everything, and get past them and get to Shanks. We see Shanks talking to some of his direct crew, so his direct crew of the red-haired pirates, and it's just, tell the rest of the ships to retreat and make a path and everything like that. And we're gonna go and we're gonna deal with Kid himself. This is probably after they delivered the ultimatum of like Rockstar went and told Kid, or delivered the message of like, hey, if you hand over your poneglyphs and you surrender and you leave and hand over the poneglyph etchings, I'll let you go. So I'm assuming that that offer was already made, and Kid probably turned it down. Which seems exactly like something that Kid would do, since he's well aware of the fact that should he fail in this regard, he will most likely die. Yeah. So the rest of the other crews that we see around Shanks, or the rest of the other captains that we see around Shanks, are just like, but we're trying to stop him. We're trying to take care of him for you, Chief, so you don't have to and everything. And he's just like, no, it's fine. We were stopping by and lost track of time, and we were, spending fun time with friends. I guess seeing Dorian, Bragi, and Ormo and Kashi, however that ended up going on. Hopefully we'll get more of an explanation of how that happened, but we'll get more of that. Shanks keeps getting hugged by some of the other members. We also see like a guy that kind of looks like a robot in the background. He looks like he could pass for one of the toys that Sugar made in Dressrosa, but I highly doubt that he is, because she got knocked out, so he should have been returned to normal. But we also see like some of these other pirates that are just like hugging Shanks and like, no, Captain, and stuff like that. And we see other ones that are just like, yeah, well, we're really weak and everything like that. And the real reason that we have, they have these reputations is because you let us use your flag and stuff like that. And we're just really notoriously weak. We also see like a couple of we see like an old lady that seems to be like another captain of a different crew or another member of a different crew. Maybe she's part of the social club crew. And all these other little miscellaneous captains that we see that are just like kind of interesting designs that probably either later on Oda might do something where he gives more of like an SBS or more information data book or whatever about some of these different crews and stuff like that, or some of the other captains, and then that'll probably get worked into the anime at some point. Which will be interesting to watch when they do that, see how they kind of adjust with that to give us more, close-ups of some of these other captains. I'm really happy that Wano is getting a pretty good progression so far in the English dub, so I'm really happy about that. I'm enjoying getting Wano watched through and everything, so I'm happy about that. Back to this. But the fact that they say that we're notoriously weak and kind of the only reason we've been able to survive in the New World, or for the most part, is because they're part of Shanks's fleet and they have his flag that they fly. And I take this as like a double thing of like, this means that, Shanks trusts these people enough with his flag. And that means that he at least knows that they're not going to be out, pillaging and causing huge amounts of trouble, probably off partying and having fun, maybe fighting against other pirates or marines every now and then, maybe, helping defend some of the other islands that are part of Shanks's territory, possibly. Things along those lines. But I don't think that Shanks would be the type of person or the type of captain to just, hand out his flag willy-nilly to anybody. We know that when they were in Fuchsia Village, all those years ago, that they were kind of protecting the village as well. At times, there weren't a Yonko crew then, but still, they were protecting the village to a degree. And then, we know that they offer protection to other islands, like the island that Bartolomeo went to, during when we saw a whole bunch of the cover stories for the different Straw Hat Grand Fleet and stuff like that. So we know that there's other islands that are part of Shanks' territory that he keeps, that he protects. Elbath seems to be one of them. And then there's, other things that seem to go on with that. So I would assume that these different pirate crews are probably similar in that regard. They're not exceedingly strong ones, but they seem to be at least someone, ones that have earned Shanks's trust enough, unlike Doflamingo. I'm going through Dressrosa stuff right now for getting pictures and stuff like that. So going through the anime. And, so we do have the moments in Dressrosa where we get like the flashback with Bellamy when he first met Doflamingo. And it's just like, Doflamingo's like, yeah, you can use our Jolly Roger, but don't you ever bring disgrace to it. And it was just like, you literally just met this guy. He's clearly a flippin' jerk in regards to Bellamy, and you're just going to let him use your flag. Admittedly, Doflamingo is a flippin' evil prick. So Shanks seems to be possibly doing the opposite regard of like, yeah, they're weak crews, but I still want to make sure that they're protected because they're my friends and stuff like that. Probably similar to the way that, Whitebeard was to his different subordinate crews and allied crews and stuff like that. So there's probably that's going on. Shanks is on the Red Force now, probably getting headed off to go and deal with, he's getting ready to go and deal with Kid, and he's, talking to some of his subordinates and stuff like that. And, he's like, don't underestimate the growth that this youngling has gone through, that the youngsters have gone through in regards, Kid is up to a 3 billion berry bounty at this point in time, which is the same as Luffy and the same as Laws. And yes, Luffy is the one that is now the Yonko, but, Kid and Law still did a fair amount during those battles on Onigashima against Kaido and with Big Mom. And yes, Kid helped defeat Big Mom. I would say part of that defeat definitely goes to having to deal with the Kanzenbo and having to deal with the bombs and stuff like that. Also with Law figuring out how to attack her from the inside and then how to trap her with the what was it, K room, C room, whatever it was, where he trapped her where no sound could get out. R room was what that was, excuse me. And cause those problems and stuff like that. So Kid did help with dealing with Big Mom, so that's not denied. But I don't know where I fall on like how much he did compared to what Law did. So we'll see what happens with that. But Kid definitely, I think, is still kind of getting a little too big for his britches right now, because it's not like Law went to try to fight Blackbeard. That just happened. They happened into that area where Blackbeard was, so there's a difference. Kid specifically is like, oh, look, there's Elbath. Oh, look, there's Shanks's fleet. Let's go deal with them, when he could have easily turned around and left. It's just like Kid is kind of the all or nothing when it comes to betting, I'm pretty sure. And we get to go through and we get to see, Shanks like asks, Yasop, hey, how does Kid look? Does he look injured? And he's like, no, he seems fine. This is probably just like he doesn't want to attack Kid directly if Kid still looks like he's really injured from having to deal with Kaido on Wano and stuff like that, which goes with in regards to kind of scene of Shanks being somewhat on the more honorable side of stuff when it comes to being a pirate. So I'm not surprised by that. But he's like, nah, Kid looks fine, so Shanks isn't going to go easy on him. And he's just like, yeah, what do we have for advice, news about Blackbeard? Not much. And Shanks made the comment of like, I really thought that he was going to show his face at Wano, which is completely a way of just kind of like fixing the fact that Shanks randomly seemed to show up at Wano way back when Film Red was going to be premiering, as a way of, promoting the movie. So I like how they're just like, I'll throw in a line here that was like, Shanks thought the Blackbeard was going to show up at Wano, which I mean is a fair point. Some people thought that Blackbeard might show up at Wano and try to see what he could do to get a hold of Big Mom and Kaido's devil fruits, along with any of the other devil fruits that could appear. Orochi's devil fruit is now out there again since he's been killed, and we have no idea where that devil fruit could be. Well, I was going to say, well, Izo doesn't have the devil fruit, and neither did Ashura Doji, so there wouldn't have been any devil fruits popping up with them. And if Big Mom and Kaido are dead, or even if one of them is dead, then their devil fruit is now out there somewhere in the world. I would advise doing a huge search all around Wano to try to see if you can find these devil fruits. That's something Yamato can do while he's on Wano for a while. He can go around, and between himself and the scabbards, they can try to find the different devil fruits that belong to, try to find Orochi's devil fruit, and then either find someone that maybe they trust with it, or at least put it away so it's at least not going to be able to be used again for a while, given the bad connotations with it, depending on where it arrived, or depending on where it reincarnated. Same thing as if Kaido's fruit got reincarnated. But, so a lot of people thought Blackbeard could show up at Wano, and Shanks apparently was one of them in this regard, so that would have made sense why he was near Wano in regards to, like, kind of explaining that little, plot hole away. I was like, no, whatever, just see some information about Kid. Oh, he's from the South Blue or whatever. And he likes to rampage a lot, which we've seen with Kid. That is one of the things that is the differentiation between Luffy and Kid, because we know way back at Sabaody when we were introduced to the different supernovas that it was stated that, yes, Kid has the highest and Luffy has the second highest bounty. Luffy's was having to deal with the fact that he challenged the world government at Enies Lobby and stuff like that, and the fact that at that point in time he'd now beaten 2 warlords in regards to dealing with Crocodile, and then later on dealing with Gecko Moria, although I don't think there was a huge bounty increase after Thriller Bark. I don't think that happened, but the world government knew that he had defeated Gecko Moria because of, Kuma's, report. So it would make sense, but we also know that Kid had been much more bloodthirsty, I guess would be a good way of putting it, in regards to dealing, in regards to the way that he tended to act. Like, they tended to do a lot more rampaging and causing damage and pillaging and stuff like that. In regards to dealing, coming across other pirate crews and other islands and things like that, and just causing a lot more general, pain and stuff like that. I mean, one of the first things we do see that Kid does when they do get to the New World is they find this pirate crew on this other island and they fight them, and then he basically has them like crucified. And stuff to just show, his might at this point in time. And, Kid is strong. No one's denying that. I mean, like, he did defeat one of Big Mom's sweet commanders, probably Snack. And, as I said, he did help against Kaido and against Big Mom and everything like that. So there's all that stuff. But then it's also like, oh, Kid and his crew, as far as we're aware, Kid, Killer, Wire, and Heat are the 4 big heavy hitters on the crew. And even then, we haven't seen a whole bunch of what, Wire and Heat can do. Heat breathes fire, and Wire has a pitchfork. But we don't really see too much else that has to do with that, and we don't see, we haven't seen what the other crew members are capable of yet. But, so Kid gets ready to, use his damned punk, which is the giant railgun thing that he makes out of his powers, which, I wonder if he kept any of the scrap metal and stuff like that they found that he used on Onigashima for building stuff, or when he was there and fighting against the other 2 Yonko. I wonder if he kept any of that scrap metal, or maybe him and his crew salvaged some of the stuff from it that was like, oh, some of this is like really good quality stuff. We'll hold on to this because the captain can use it in his, when he uses his devil fruit, when he uses his jiki no mi. So there's the possibility of that, but I don't know. He also may just have different material that he's gathered up over the course of their travels and use that. And we see him get the attack and send it out, and it seems to just destroy the fleet of Shanks' ships and just, wipe out a whole bunch of his allies, a bunch of his subordinates. And then we cut to where we find out that this is actually just Shanks' future sight, seeing this coming. And he's like, okay, yeah, no, this, I'm not going to deal with that. And he, orders the rest of the ships to, just make a path, which they do. And Ben Beckman is just like, you must have seen a heck of a future there, Captain. And Shanks then unleashes Divine Departure, hockeys up Griffin, and just releases this huge attack that just aims directly at where Kid is and where Killer is, and just completely shreds Kid's damned punk railgun thing. Divine Departure is the same attack, is an attack that Roger used. It's the attack that he used against Odin back when the, Whitebeard and, Roger pirates ended up battling against each other on the island for 3 days, and Roger attacked Odin with that, and Odin was fine. But so it's a pretty decent attack. Also, it makes perfect sense that Shanks fights with the sword the same way that his captain did, so it makes sense that Shanks would probably end up having some attacks that are an homage to his captain. Also, I think Divine Departure is one of the only attacks we've seen Roger actually use canonically, so I don't really know what to say about that. It could just be, well, he has this, maybe that was the attack from his captain that he thought was the coolest, so he made it his own and made his own version of it. And beyond stuff we've seen in like Film Red, we haven't really seen Shanks do any other attacks beyond this one. He had like that Griffin Lion thing or whatever that he did in Film Red, but there was a difference there. That's non-canon. And it just kind of the attack just caused like this huge explosion on the ship, and we see some of the other crew members of Kid, and they're just like, oh my god, Captain, and like Kid and Killer are just knocked down. Probably some of the other crew members got knocked down. Yeah, as I said, we just saw the episode kind of just came out where we saw Killer fight against Hawkins. So we see this bond and trust that like Killer has in Kid. And like Killer has already put all of his chips in on Kid in regards to Kid becoming the Pirate King. Which, you gotta admire his admiration for his captain in that regard. You at least gotta admire that. Um, and so Kid and Killer are both basically taken out of the game at this point in time. They're both knocked out and both probably pretty seriously injured at this point in time, given Shank's attack. And we see Heat and Wired, a bunch of the other ones are just like, we surrender, we surrender, we surrender. Here, have mercy. Please don't kill our captain. Here are the poneglyphs. Here, just take them. And and Shanks takes them and just like hops off their ship, lands on probably his own ship or wherever it was. I wouldn't be surprised if Shanks can use Geppo and skywalk all over the place the way that like Sanji can, and the CP Aegis Zero and Zero and Nine agents can, and stuff like that. That wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if Shanks is capable of that. And he just dashes away, and then we see Dory and Broggy, and they're just getting ready to unleash this huge attack, and they do. It's the same attack, Kokoku Sovereignty, that they used on Little Garden way back to destroy the goldfish, the island eater goldfish that was attacking the Straw Hats and helped the Straw Hats leave the island. So it's that same attack, and like they're like, if you're going to show up at someone's house, at someone's home, and start firing cannons at it, don't be surprised when they start fighting back. And, they unleash, Hakoku Sovereignty at the Victoria Punk, and it just shreds this giant hole right through the ship and just destroys the ship. And into the water fall the rest of the Kid pirates, including their captain and second in command, who both have devil fruits and can't swim. And we get the narrator coming on, and he's just like, on this day in the new, what is the exact phrasing? I mean, like, on this day in the new world, by Elbath, the Kid pirate crew led by Eustace Captain Kidd, needs a better epitaph, a man worth 3 billion, was completely eliminated. And we just see like Shanks's angry face about like, yeah, no, this is what you get. And I as I said, I talked to my mom about some of this stuff and things like that, and she follows enough One Piece and understands enough of what's going on for like me to just bounce ideas off of her. And I'm like, I literally just mentioned on Wednesday when I did the Straw Hats, reunions and stuff like that, when I was mentioning Hyrudine and the Giant Warrior Pirates, that should the Giant Warrior Pirates, the new Giant Warrior Pirates, show up at, Elbath, and, even if they're flying Luffy's flag as part of his Grand Fleet and stuff like that, if they show up, they're not going to be firing cannons at Elbath. That is their home. And they're not going to be showing up trying to attack it. They're probably just there for a visit. It was like, oh, well, we were in the area, so let's go visit Elbath. Let's go visit home. Also, should Hyrudine and Gerd and the others find out that, Dory and Broggy are back, they're definitely going to want to go and see them. You want more of my thoughts on this, go and watch that video. But in regards to that, like, there is this difference also. If Luffy and the others ended up, if Luffy and his crew end up showing up at Elbath, also if Shanks somehow knows about this connection between Saul and Robin, that would be, also another reason for like the Straw Hats to show up on Elbath and Shanks not want to, attack them, beyond the fact that, Luffy is kind of Shanks' protege to a degree, although it's technically more Rayleigh's protege since Rayleigh is the one that trained him, but still. Luffy is Shanks' bet on the future. So should Luffy and the crew, like, they leave Egghead and they end up showing up at Elbath, should that happen, Luffy and the others aren't going to show up at Elbath and start firing cannons at it. They're not going to show up and start attacking. That is what Kid and his crew did. That's what they tend to do, from what we understand, is they show up on different islands, they start attacking, they start, firing their cannons, Kid starts messing with everybody's, using his magnetism powers to attack people and stuff like that, and just cause general chaos. And stuff like, oh, these, even if they're probably there to stop to just resupply and stuff like that, there's probably been islands where someone laughs at, like, Kid's dream about becoming the pirate king, ha ha, and then he just, like, crucifies them like he did to the other pirate crew before. So, I would not be surprised in the slightest if I'm not surprised in the slightest actually that like Shanks just like has kind of ended the Kid at this point in time. I mean, there's a fair number of the crew that probably don't have devil fruits and probably know how to swim and can probably save, Kid and Killer and some of the other ones that may not be able to swim and prevent them from drowning. But and maybe grab onto some of the wreckage, but their ship's gone. Their captain was defeated. And, you know, pretty handily in one attack too, in that regard. But technically two attacks if we want to throw in Dorian Broggy's getting thrown in there too. But I don't see the Kid Pirates recovering from this. I mean, it says they're eliminated, so that either means that a lot of them are going to drown, and the Jiki Jiki no Mi will return into the world somewhere, and some maybe on Elbath it'll show up, and some giant might get the power of the Devil Fruit, or maybe they end up surviving, and maybe they end up being able to make their way somewhere, float on the driftwood and end up somewhere, either on, maybe back on Elbath, and like kids like Shanks and the other the crew are just like, you showed up on this island and you caused a lot of problems. You attacked my fleet. I destroyed your ship. I don't think you're going to be a pirate anymore. Or if you are, you're going to work for me. Shanks could give them that ultimatum, but we're not sure. We haven't seen the way that Shanks tends to deal with, enemies that he's defeated. So I'm not going to be surprised if Kid and the others if Kid and Killer and the rest of the Kid Pirates don't show up again. But I'm also not going to be surprised if they do, depending on how it's done and stuff. Because, I mean, I don't remember exactly the numbers for how many people were on the crew, but it was a decent number. I mean, more than the Straw Hats, at least double, if possibly not triple what the Straw Hats have. I wouldn't be surprised, what happens if they do end up surviving. Sea Kings could come and start attacking them. It all depends on what Oda decides to elaborate and stuff like that later on in upcoming chapters, or additional things in SBSs that maybe end up getting shown in the anime later on when things get done. But I don't think they're going to be coming back. It says eliminated. That's pretty, daunting, but also eliminated, yes, meaning like they're no longer a threat to anyone, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're dead. Unless there ends up being something later on where Oda clarifies it. No, they're dead. Even if some of them survived getting hit by the attack, they drowned, or Sea King showed up, or whatever the case may be. And, so we'll see how that ends up playing out. I do kind of like, though, that it kind of landed right around the same time that we got, like, this really good Killer episode, and then now this is happening in the manga. I know that Oda doesn't have a huge amount of what's going on with the anime, but I like how that kind of lined up in that regard. So we've seen more of York's plan and kind of how that one got taken care of. We've seen now what's going on here with Shanks and Kid. See if we end up getting any updates on, like, Kid and on Law and Blackbeard in the next chapter or the next couple of chapters. I don't know. We'll see how that ends up going. I don't want Blackbeard to get Law's devil fruit. I certainly don't want that. If Law gets captured, that'd be different. If Law and his crew get captured and taken prisoner by Blackbeard, then that would be a bit of a different thing. As opposed to, Kid getting eliminated and stuff like that. But we'll see how that goes. I may have another video planned where I talk more about Kid and Killer and some, other stuff with them, since I haven't really gotten to talk about them that much. Beyond some stuff here, I haven't really gotten to talk about Kid and Killer and the Kid Pirates. So we'll see if I end up doing that, since I think there is a break this week. I'll probably end up maybe doing something with that either this week or next week, depending on stuff. Since I think at the moment I'm kind of paused on the different reunions videos, depending on stuff. So that's what I have. I thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. This weekend I get to go to an exhibit at one of our museums in Omaha about Marvel superheroes, so I'll find that entertaining. Also, I get to go and see an exhibit at our a local giant garden place there that's called Lorenzen Gardens that has an exhibit about different sea creatures that are made out of recycled plastic from the ocean and plastic from the ocean and stuff like that. So hopefully those will be two very interesting experiences that I get to have. So as I said, I thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day. Bye.